There we go. Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I am calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It's 11:15 on August 27th, 2025, and I'm Barbara Neal. As a reminder, the meeting's being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the task force webpage following our meeting. Let's start with our usual roll call of task force members. If you could please verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name. Dan Batesy.
Present.
Paul White.
I am here.
Morning. Ron Kumitz.
Here.
Okay, and Jim Mack.
Here.
Excellent. And that looks to be it for task force members. Also joining us today is Emily Mullaney as our administrative support, and our project management team, Rick, Dom, and Elizabeth from Televate. Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I see Bonnie Maney is here from Mission Critical Partners. Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning.
And looks like we have one member of the public, a stakeholder who's joined us before. Kate Delorier, would you introduce yourself and where you're from, just in case someone doesn't know?
Hi, I'm Kate Delorier. I'm the PSCTF administrator down in Westminster.
Great. Thanks for being here. Okay, I think I've covered everyone there under the roll call. So approval of the agenda. The agenda was distributed to task force members by email. It's also available on the website. Are there any changes for the agenda today? Okay. Hearing nothing, we'll consider the agenda approved and move on to approval of the minutes. So these would be the minutes from the July 30th meeting, which was regular meeting number 56. Are there any changes needed to these minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes from July 30?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from July 30th, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
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 All right. The minutes are approved from July 30th. So now we're on to project updates, and we've got several items under this category. So Dom, I'll hand it over to you for the Televate updates. Oh, well, before you get started, I see Mike Dunn just joined us. Morning, Mike.
Good morning.
Great.
Sorry for the delay.
Morning. That's okay. We're at project updates on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen to help me out here. Let's see, we have, I think I have too many windows open. Aha, okay, I got the right one, at least the start. Okay, we've had a lot of activity over the last couple of weeks. It's been a fun time. We're concentrating on the working group meetings. Tier 2 working group had 2 meetings over the last couple of weeks, and Tier 3 just had one in our 2 weeks of reporting, although we did have one just this past Monday as well. So we're keeping up to date there. The governance working group had a couple of meetings as well on the 14th and 20th, and we have one scheduled for, shortly after this meeting. We have been maintaining and addressing action items from each of these 3 working groups, and we have been recording all of the meetings, and those have been posted with the help of Emily on the website, and also the meeting notes have been distributed throughout. We have prepared I say task group, should be working group reports for Tier 2 and Tier 3, and we'll be going over those shortly. So we have quite a bit of activity, and that's ongoing. I do have a proposed update schedule for the working groups, and you'll see that here. And some of the changes appear in yellow. there. I've got them in yellow since they have not been discussed with the full task force yet. So that's where we are. The activities shown through green, of course, is what we have accomplished to date. As I mentioned, Tier 2 and Tier 3 are providing their reports today. So those working groups can essentially stand down, at least temporarily. It depends on if there's additional tasks or questions coming from the task force. So we have no future meetings planned for those two, but they will be called as necessary. Per the schedule, and since those working groups did go a little bit longer than anticipated, we have rescheduled the physical regionalization working group, or Tier 1, but I would recommend that start essentially next week, start in September. Also, I'm recommending the governance working group timeframe be extended a couple of weeks as well, as we still have more work to do there. And given those changes, I have also changed the scheduled time. You'll see a couple of windows for the organic and inorganic regionalization group. I've adjusted those 2-week windows in September and then a 2-week window towards the end of October. And subsequently, the later working groups funding and timeline have been changed as well. So this change brings us right through pretty much till the end of November. I assume that is still acceptable in terms of putting plans together to present to the legislature, but happy to discuss the schedule and make adjustments as necessary. Any thoughts or comments from the task force members?
I think that will allow sufficient time to organize our thoughts and get ready to present whatever we're going to present to the legislature, and also maybe give some of the key legislators a heads up about what is coming. So I think that's good timing. What do others think?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't have any recommended changes to the schedule.
Neither do I.
Nope, not me.
Good.
All
Looks
right.
like we're good to go with that.
All right. Thank you all. And that, as far as the status, that completes our input for today.
Sorry, I keep forgetting that I'm going on and off mute all the time here. Bonnie, anything you'd like to add from Mission Critical's perspective?
No, I don't think so. We are here available. I know I've responded to Dom a couple of times about different things that you guys were looking for in original survey information and things like that. And we are here to assist in any way that we can.
Sounds good. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that brings us to the first of the two working group reports. First up is the Tier 2 working group. Dom, I think you volunteered or offered, or at least agreed to kind of summarize
Exactly.
the working group's work. I'm not on Tier 2, but speaking for Tier 3, I appreciate you doing that, because you do it in a very well organized way. So much appreciated. But over to you for Tier 2.
And I'm happy to do that. I have a PowerPoint to share to take us through those, and this will address both Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Okay.
I'm going to put this in presentation mode, hopefully make it a little bit easier for everyone to see. And there's the schedule, an updated schedule. This is the same that we just saw, so I don't believe any further description is necessary here. And just a list again of the working groups, the 7 that we have developed. Again, the 3 are Ongoing, these two highlighted there or bolded are the ones we plan on discussing today, the Tier 2 and Tier 3. So first, a little bit about the process we went through and the format in terms of how we're going to present the recommendations coming from each of the working groups. So as we all know, we did develop 7 working groups, and we have task force member assignments for each of those. And for those 3 we have ongoing, we've had active participation from all the task force members. We appreciate that. We have reviewed in detail the key content from the system design plan document that was developed by MCP for each of the significant work items they identified. We did look at the options in each of the working groups discussion. The options included both the strengths of each option as well as the challenges. We did review those and attempted to come up with a recommendation in each category. And that's what we'll review today. We performed this through a schedule of multiple, I think we had 6 or 7 meetings for some of these working groups, open to the public with advance notice, and all of the meetings were facilitated with a presentation and open discussion. In many of the meetings, we had a number of public meeting attendees, which were part of the greater Vermont public safety stakeholders, and we certainly appreciated their participation. They were provided some key input in many areas, and we typically called on them to get some additional input or clarification. And as Bonnie had mentioned, we've required some clarification from the report and additional information from MCP, and they've been very responsive providing that as well. I mentioned we have action items in each of the working groups, and even those couple that we're providing today, we still have a few ongoing action items, and those will be, we'll continue to address those, and we will provide updates to those via the working group through email and schedule additional meetings as necessary. There's also been some key stakeholder outreach and follow-up that has occurred also in between the working group meetings to get additional input or additional clarification. And today we find ourselves with the preliminary recommendations for the full task force. And what we will recommend is that next steps would be based on what the task force recommendations are or direction. Again, there may be additional clarification or information that they request from a working group, and we're happy to address that as necessary. The format that you're going to see today is the top table shows you the different work items, and those you will all find listed in the system plan report. Those were the items identified as critical in the MCP report, and in most cases there were 3, sometimes 4 options presented. Again, I mentioned each with their strengths and challenges associated with them. The working groups evaluated each of those, and we'll show one of the options, one, sometimes more, highlighted in green. That's indicating the recommended option, the preferred option that the working group found. And there are some additional comments to provide there as well. The bottom table shows a recommendation for further development of an implementation plan for each of these work items. So this table has not been developed yet. We would anticipate that this would be developed following confirmation from the task force as to the preferred option or preferred approach. and we can further develop this information, which we feel would be helpful to present to the legislature when that time does come. So this particular table shows the information from Tier 3. You'll see the 9 different work items there, and we would recommend developing this table, which indicates what our recommendation is, the priority, the strategy to implement, and the requirements and resources necessary in order to implement that. Any questions or comments on this before we move on to the actual recommendations? Okay, hearing none, moving on, and Tier 3 is, or I'm sorry, Tier 2 is up first. And just an overview before we get to the actual recommendations. Tier 2 addressed technology and shared systems based regionalization as defined in the report. And you'll see the task force members there that were involved. The goal of this working group was to determine the priorities and potential recommendations for these specific areas within Tier 2, and you'll see them listed below. There are about 10 items here, some with some item that we considered all of these were considered by working group, and we'll address each of them here. The first group of items were related to the CAD. The first two, well, actually all of these are related to CAD. The two are very closely intertwined. The middle one being the essential public safety discipline functionality be implemented in CAD. And the first one addresses the anti-alley data and transfer into the CAD. From this item, the first item, the working group's preference was option 2, was to implement a CAD-to-CAD interface, but to still have the PSAPs continue to transfer the caller to the dispatch center. The thought was that they prefer to have the original caller on the line if there's any additional data or information that can be provided. So you see those comments provided on the column to the right, as well as some estimated cost for that activity. The working group felt that this was part of the overall CAD costs, which we'll see addressed in the next item. The next item was CAD, and there was overwhelming support by the working group to develop and issue an RFP for a statewide CAD that could support all public safety disciplines. So specifically implementing the requirements in addition to what's supported today to implement the requirements for fire and EMS. There were some suggested or estimated costs provided in the system plan document, as well as Televate was able to reach out to one of the prospective vendors and provide a ROM cost for the CAD for a statewide license, including CAD-to-CAD functionality. And that was in the sub $2 million range. Adding RMS on top of that, a different RMS system would be an additional 4.5 million based on the ROM that was developed. But this was over a 5-year period. So those costs cover that functionality for 5 years. One point regarding the CAD-to-CAD that I'd like to point out, and I noticed someone has their hand up, just a second, please. But one item regarding CAD-to-CAD was, even if there's a statewide CAD system, it's very possible that not all dispatch centers will accommodate that. And also there are out-of-state dispatch centers, of course, which may have different CADs. So we still believe a CAD-to-CAD functionality is required. And is it Dan? Is that you with
Yeah.
a hand up?
Yeah, just a quick question. So
Sure.
when I look at the record management system of 4.5 million over a 5 year, would that replace money that we're spending currently for the record management system? I'm assuming that's Valcor.
Yes, that's
Okay.
how we see that. Yes, and we did get some current pricing for or the current costs that the state is incurring for Valcor, which is around roughly 900,000 per year. And we understand that the contract with for Valcor expires at the end of 2026 next
Okay.
year.
So that's money, essentially that's money we're already spending.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I also add to that? So when we requested the ROM, we also requested a bridge so that in the event that we wanted to maintain Valcor as a record management system, that we would still be able to consume that Valcor data into this CAD. So, we didn't seek to replace, this CAD. We just wanted, or the RMS, the Valcor system. We wanted to both have the flexibility and having an understanding of what this particular vendor's ROM would be for the RMS. And while we requested, interfaces from the CAD to support both CAD to CAD and consumption of the Valcor data into the CAD. So this gave us, this ROM covered both of those options. Yes, Barb.
Am I correct that this recommendation would mean, or the expectation would be that the 911 call taker would be working in CAD, populating information in CAD. Of course, some of the data will be automatically sent over, but it'll essentially be the call taker who's initiating the CAD event that then gets sent wherever it needs to go, or is delivered wherever it needs to go. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's how we understand it. Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I
Right.
was understanding it correctly. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I guess a question for Barb, in follow-up to what you just said, do we still have any call takers in Vermont that are just call takers and not cross-trained as dispatchers? Would that be a big learning curve?
If there are, sometimes when new people come on board, they are just call takers for a period of time as they're learning the dispatch function. But I think as an everyday, I think that there are no call taker only positions at this point. Dan, does that sound right for DPS?
Since Mr. Brown retired, we don't have any more.
I think he was the last.
Barb, I think so, but I'd want to check. I'm not an expert on that.
Okay. Okay.
But it's not a big number if we do have some, sounds like.
Right. And I think, frankly, if the call taker's role is to populate the information in CAD, they're not actually doing the dispatch, right? They're populating the information for somebody who is a dispatcher.
Right.
Might be that it's
it might
them.
It might be a little bit more of a step than what they're currently doing, but not
Right.
full dispatching. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, that's how I see it. I see a comment from Kate. Let me read that. Kate advises DPS doesn't have any full-time call takers only. There are a couple of part-time call takers only.
Okay.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, which was regarding statistics and reporting capabilities within CAD. The working group didn't feel that it was necessary to choose either of these options at this point in time. The feeling was that moving forward with an RFP for a statewide CAD system, there would be necessary to develop a set of requirements, and those requirements would identify what the reporting capabilities would be, and those would be included in the CAD RFP. And similarly, for the CAD to RMS data flow, same type of situation there. The working group didn't feel it was necessary to choose one of these options. It felt that there would be a committee of stakeholders developing the requirements, and that those CAD RFP requirements would also include the RMS interface requirements.
Hello.
Is there a question?
No, I think somebody has an open mic. Mike Dungus, maybe? There we go.
All right, thank you. Next item was the digital logging recorder standard. And the working group felt it was very important that there should be a requirement for recording all activity. And they looked at potentially either option 2 or option 3 as a recommendation, where they felt it was up to the full task force or potentially the future governance body to determine whether or not this should be included in statute.
I don't understand the difference between option 2 and option 3.
They
seems
are
the same to me.
essentially the same thing in terms of identifying a standard. Option 3 includes memorializing that in or state statute.
So the difference is just the statutory requirement versus the
Policy.
option
Right,
2. We
that's-
would have it, but not necessarily statutorily required. Is that right?
That's how I see that, yes.
Okay.
Depending on the governance body, the requirement to do thus and such could be through policy or rulemaking even. So option 2 might still end up being a requirement, just a different mechanism.
That's true, Barb. Good point. The last work item on this page was core data transfer via telephone. This again addresses ANI and ALI data integration and working with the CAD vendor. The working group's preference was for option 1 as a short-term solution that could potentially utilize the rapid SOS solution, which we understand the E911 board is looking to transition to rapid SOS later this year. And that would hopefully have enough licenses to support all dispatch centers. And a long-term solution would be to, of course, include these requirements in the CAD RFP.
I can add a little context there around what the 911 board is up to. So
Yeah, please.
So we did recently extend our contract with our system provider in digital. The extension begins in the middle of October, and we'll be replacing our current mapping solution, which is provided by Geocom right now, with a rapid SOS solution. Once we have that implemented in the PSAPs and available and working properly for the call takers, we will be reaching out to dispatch centers who are not PSAPs to make available a limited number of licenses that we purchased essentially with this contract extension. So I believe we have 30 initially, or in the neighborhood of 30 licenses. And there would be the option to purchase more. Whether or not that purchasing more would be a cost that falls to the 911 board or a cost that falls to the requesting dispatch center is not decided yet. But we'll get everything implemented for 911 first, and then be working on the licensing issue with dispatch centers.
Barb, is a license assigned to a person or to a dispatch position?
I believe it's to a position.
Okay.
I should, let me double check on that.
So
I think it's a per seat.
I mean, so that would mean it would be assigned to the chair and multiple people rotate through that chair. You wouldn't need one per person.
That's my understanding, and I'll double check.
Okay.
But then again, you may need 3 or 4 per dispatch center, right? If
Right.
they're-
Correct,
Yeah.
depending on
Right.
who's
Right.
working, so. Actually, St. Johnsbury PD will be brought on to the rapid SOS solution that we're going to be offering these limited licenses for first, because they've actually been basically in a test project with the 911 board for a couple years now, where we gave them access to the 911 map or a view of the 911 map so they could see all 911 calls within their jurisdiction, displayed via the Geocom solution. We never rolled that project out any further because the component of the solution was no longer being supported by the companies involved. So we just stopped that rollout of that idea, and Rapid SOS is kind of picking up where we left off with that. So we will get St. Johnsbury on board first because that will allow them the continuity of what they've been used to having from us.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, the next group of 3 work items were the data transfer for fire station alerting and paging. Again, the working group's preference was for option 1 to include implementing CAD-to-CAD interface with the PSAPs to interface to these systems. And we would believe the cost would be part of the overall CAD system cost. For GIS and mapping, similar to the discussion we just had, the request or the preferred option was to expand the use of Rapid SOS as a short-term solution, and then to transition to option 2, which would be replacing the current Valcor mapping with a more robust mapping solution, which we would anticipate being part of the statewide CAD RFP. So short-term option 1, transitioning to option 2 in the longer term. And Barb, do you have a question?
Yeah, a quick question, I think. I'm going to jump back to the previous item. I agree with option 1, that it's good to continue transferring the caller along with the CAD-to-CAD interface, but I'm trying to recall what was the advantage, and maybe this is a question for Bonnie, but what was the advantage of not transferring a caller? If there's a short answer for that.
The advantage of not transferring a caller?
Well, you see in option 2, it says implement CAD-to-CAD with PSAPs handling call intake supported by a policy that callers are not being transferred. So is that suggesting that all of the information would just be conveyed electronically via CAD?
Correct, that with a proper CAD-to-CAD interface, the call intake function could be performed by the original call taker without need for transferring the caller to dispatch. I would, and this is similar to the one previously, I think it was listed as actually option 3. And the policy piece here for not transferring, it kind of makes it a little bit more strict. I would posit that not every caller needed to be transferred, right? Some may not need to be transferred. The challenges of transfer, you could lose the caller in the transfer, right? And previously absent being able to have that Annie Alley, right? There was that danger, especially of them not having that information.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think one of the things that when we put these together, part of it was some of these are very interrelated. You can do one in one area and it's going to have a cascading impact elsewhere, right? So
Right.
that would be the information there, Barb.
Okay, thank you. I just needed my memory refreshed. Thanks.
I understand completely.
All right, moving on, the last item on this page was the over-the-top and integrated applications. We looked at two options here. The working group essentially had a preference for somewhat of a blend of the two options, primarily option one, which includes a regional work group, work group with regional representatives to develop the appropriate over-the-top applications to standardize or recommend statewide, but to augment that with a contract vehicle that could be used for individual dispatch centers to implement. So the cost would include, governance subcommittee support. This is assuming that there would be a committee or subcommittee at the governance level that would be tasked with identifying a common over-the-top applications to utilize. And then there would be a local dispatch center investment decision as to whether or not they wanted to incorporate those into their process. The next group of items are here. This item regarding the non-call processing and dispatch system kind of ancillary duties. There was quite a bit of discussion here. It was also a similar item discussed at the Tier 3 working group meeting. And in both working groups, there was pretty much consensus that there were some potential items here of additional activities that could be shared at a regional level. For instance, some type of administrative services, alarm activation, records, warrants. So the decision at this working group was to leave that decision to the Tier 3 working group, but as we'll discuss, is also going to be dependent somewhat on the direction found with the physical regionalization under Tier 1. But the working group did feel that there was opportunity to offload some of these activities at a regional level. Cybersecurity, there was a preference by the working group for option one to implement a common statewide, that acronym is Governance, Risk, and Compliance framework. And they did feel that it needs some type of high-level top-down approach, essentially from the state. So again, the assumption would be that there would be a governance subcommittee that was tasked with identifying the specifics regarding this framework. The last one here is VCOM. And VCOM, essentially, there were not different options provided in the plan by MCP, but MCP provided multiple recommendations on how to modify VCOM to make it more user-friendly and beneficial. However, the working group did not recommend making any additional investment in VCOM and is suggesting the best course of action is to shut down the system and salvage whatever equipment possible. Any questions or comments on this? I'm sorry.
Is it used anywhere? Is it used anywhere at all? And would there need to be some kind of transition plan, or is it not operational?
There are various parts to it. The majority of it is not operational.
Okay.
I think, well, granted, my experience is 9 years old, but I can, when I left, and Kate could probably answer this better. When I left, some of the car-to-car capabilities were used, like for training scenarios, or like, for example, if you had an incident where DART was being flown in to evacuate somebody, there was a designated channel where ground personnel could communicate with the helicopter on specified channels. But as far as the calling or the hailing frequencies, I don't think anybody is using that to contact the dispatch center.
Okay.
And I think that's still true today, Paul, that the talk around or car to car simplex channels, probably both at VHF and UHF, may still be in use. And those are programmed into all radios, and they do not require any infrastructure to utilize. So
Right.
so it wouldn't require any infrastructure maintenance or investment moving forward. So those still could be used.
And
Before moving on from this item, I'd like to suggest there's a number of really important lessons learned from VCOM. The overall intention was ideal, providing a radio network that would, deliver robust near statewide interoperability. The architecture of that network was not ideal. And that's one of the first lessons learned, is that, you can't, if you create a technology or a communication technology solution that is not easy to use, then it's not going to succeed. And also there wasn't any listening at the dispatch center, some folks said, because it's rarely used. And so while we did discover a standard operating procedure, and we, were able to discover a lot of information supporting, the development of this and some training material that was done. Well, there wasn't an overall consistent governance over this period that would have identified strengths, weaknesses, areas to improve. And so, those lessons learned are valuable. Unfortunately, they did cost, considerable major investment. But in conversation with, with RTS, there should be, some way to salvage some of that investment. And so that's part of why, the working group felt that it didn't make sense to keep it operational, because we were not using it. But that investments have been made that we should leverage to the best of our ability going forward.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the last work item under Tier 2 was the LMR infrastructure improvement. And of course, this is one of the major items to address at the Tier 2 level. MCP did provide 4 potential options. The working group did not show a preference for any specific option here. Although there was support for the system of systems approach, which is described both in option 1 and option 2, as well as very similarly in option 4. Although the working group thought it might be best to pursue systems of systems while looking at existing mutual aid groups, and we have an example of that in the next slide, or dispatch catchment areas. So there's further work to be done here to identify the right regions to address for system of systems. And also it's important to incorporate what additional activities and what current systems are in place and what expansion plans are currently ongoing. For example, we identified several simulcast systems that are currently in use today, and some that are being planned that would provide coverage in many of these areas. And the plan is to try and consolidate all of that information to determine what additional infrastructure investment would be required. So the cost is still in development. This would be, of course, one of the larger cost items to be addressed by the task force. Still, as I mentioned, in development. It's likely in the tens of millions of dollar range, depending on exactly what's incorporated. But the members of the working group will still be pursuing this information moving forward. In particular, we did look at one of the areas in Addison County here, and I guess Jim lives this on a on a daily basis. But this gives an idea of what some of the existing infrastructure is out there that could potentially be leveraged, maybe for a simulcast cell, for example. So what we see here is the different towns in Addison County. You'll see several different colors here. The different colors indicate different repeaters or different sites that are used to communicate with fire or fire dispatch within Addison County. So there's, I think, up to 10 different sites used. Many of them utilize the same frequency. I think at least 8 out of those 10 sites utilize the same frequency for dispatch, but the dispatchers, even though it's using the same frequency, still has to select one of 8 different sites to transmit off of. So obviously this is a good scenario where if a simulcast system were developed to cover all of those areas utilizing that frequency, that would make the process much simpler for the dispatch to utilize. Jim, I don't know if you have any additional comments on this. I know Jim and Ron provide a lot of the information to put this together and understand exactly how it works today.
Yeah, I do. There are actually 10 repeaters on the same frequency, 3 that are on different frequencies. 2 of those repeaters on different frequencies actually share the same tower. So that's a really good example of I needed to have my own, whether it made sense or not. And the craziness that that Jim endures is a result of the coverage issues with having separate repeaters where you have a fire in one town and you're dispatching another town as mutual aid that shares the exact same frequency, but they can't hear the first town's repeater, so you have to page on one repeater first, and then you have to page the other department on the second repeater, but they're both on the same frequency, so you're tying up the same frequency for twice as long or 3 times as long or maybe even longer depending on who's involved in the incident. So it starts to get really, really it's a really good example of why, if those repeaters were all set up as a simulcast voting system, the dispatcher would punch a bunch of buttons to stack a bunch of pages and make one voice announcement for all of those departments and get it over with so fast and so much more easily.
Exactly.
It's also important to point out that since there are multiple frequencies being used over these towns, that in simulcasting them, depending on our ability to license that frequency, as it has been licensed, so there should be a possibility that those siloed frequencies could be made available in the simulcasted network. So essentially you could have multiple frequencies and not just a single frequency, which certainly channel insufficient channels is also not in addition to dispatchers and responders having complexity. There's a limited number of channels available to communicate, so that would free up some channels, some additional capacity for responders.
Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to also say, this is not atypical either. This is very, very common throughout all of Vermont. And so, we wanted to, take the opportunity to highlight this in a visual manner with, obviously, Jim and Ron sharing their, operational experience from both a dispatcher's perspective and an end user's perspective. And so this is what we have today. So it's nearly statewide.
That completes the review of the tier 2 items. Before we move on, any further discussion of any of the tier 2 work items or further thoughts? We ready to move on to tier 3 then?
So
Yes,
just
I
a
think we
point
are.
of, are we going to vote on in totality of them, or are we going to break them up? Like, what's the plan? I'm just trying to think of how I'm going to keep all this straight in my head as you ask me to vote on things.
Right. That's a good, I guess, in my view, I think I would appreciate a bit of time to kind of digest the recommendations and maybe go over this slide and, with the report right at my side before being asked to vote, though just through this conversation, everything sounds like it was very well reasoned and sound and that. So I'm wondering if the best approach is to take this information today and then do our own homework to see if we have any additional questions or any concerns before we vote as a task force on any of them. Is that going to delay the process too long, or what do you think, Dan, or any task force member?
I don't think so. I think we still got a few points that they're even working on. Yeah, I don't have a major preference one way or the other.
So what would we ultimately be voting on? To accept the recommendations of the working group? Would that be the motion?
I would also say part of that could be to obtain further information to support the recommendation. And that's another position that could be taken.
I mean, in this particular case, I think the only task force member absent is Michael Wright, and I think he was part of this working group, so it's not a big deal. But I would want to, before we start voting to accept recommendations, I would want to make sure that all the task force members had a chance to see the presentation or absorb the information and ask whatever questions they had.
I think then it would be best to kick the voting part of this to the next meeting. And we'll have it separately on the agenda as, a vote on the tier 2 and likely tier 3 recommendations. Right now, I don't have like any other work to give to tier 2. I think most of the questions have been, or most things have been considered to the extent they can be. The big thing that's hanging out there for me is how much does all this cost? And we don't know, right? So to vote to approve the task force recommendation might always have to have the little caveat of subject to whether or not there's enough money in the checkbook.
Right. Well, and there are a few different, and I'm sure there will be more when we get to tier 3. There were categories where one working group is deferring its recommendation to the results of discussions in a different working group, like tier 2 deferred to tier 3. So, I mean, it's hard.
Sitting on two of the committees here, I realized that we had to defer some things. We were discussing a lot of the similar items, but if they don't make a decision on how the policies and procedures are, can we make a decision here on how that equipment works into the equation?
Right.
And then some of the stuff requires the governance decisions to be made.
Right.
Right. Unless we're going to vote category by category within each working group. I don't know if we can give a blanket approval of the working group's recommendations yet.
I didn't look at us coming to a vote here today. And I sat on both of these groups.
Right. So we'll get them on the table today, and then revisit them at the next meeting. Maybe it's even premature for a vote then.
Maybe.
So why don't we have it on the agenda be further discussion on tier 2 and tier 3 recommendations, which could lead to a vote or not, but we're not forced to do a vote.
I think we do need to be a little careful about making this so complex that it can't be accomplished either. Listen, you don't have to sell me that everything relates to everything, and there's so many of these pieces that are reliant upon the other piece to work. But I do think, though, that we're going to have to take a few small bites, especially in areas where there's sort of universal agreement. And I saw at least a couple of those in this piece. So I'm fine pushing it up. I don't have any problem digesting a little. I just think that if we are thinking that we're going to somehow integrate everything and that we're going to, have a piece, I think that may be wishful thinking. I also think we need to limit, our job here isn't to make sure that everything is within a cost that makes sense. I think we make a recommendation and say, this is what we recommend. The cost, it's going to be expensive. I think we need to give ourselves room to be able to say that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll leave it at additional discussion at the next meeting. I'm seeing nods.
Yes.
Yep.
Maybe we can have some conversations offline too, Dan, and maybe Rick and Dom as well, as to, how to make sure we are advancing the work without unnecessary complication. So, okay.
All right, ready to proceed with tier 3?
Yes.
Okay. Summary of tier 3, of course, is policy and operations based regionalization. You'll see the 3 task force members that participated in this working group. And our goal was to identify the priorities and recommendations for key areas within policy and operations. There are 9 key areas here that were highlighted in the system plan report, 3 each under support, operations, and workforce. And we'll use the same type of reporting format that you saw for tier 2. The first couple of those items are shown here. Standardized QA is the first one, where there was a reference by the working group to utilize option 1 there, but to also augment it via a statewide policy assumed to be developed via a governance subcommittee. So option 1 says utilize current QA practices and resources in accordance with the standards developed to expand the service for review of calls received on both 911 and administrative lines and radio dispatches. Of course, we recognize that the QA does exist for the call taking section. This was to expand that to the radio dispatch work.
I just want to clarify that the 911 board can't move to review QA of administrative lines and radios until we have, or unless we have
Right.
purview over it. And we would need additional resources. So anyway, just putting that on the table. This is not an easy 1, 2, 3 quick thing to do.
Understood. Thank you. The second item was support and administrative roles. This related back to one of the work items we discussed under Tier 2 via the ancillary duties. Again, this working group felt it was reasonable to share some support roles such as administrative and at the regional level. And we identified specific potential duties there, administrative duties, alarm activation, records, warrants, and potential municipal services. The costs or potential savings based on the approach would be based on what the Tier 1 regionalization plan is. Because in order to potentially share these resources across multiple dispatch centers depends on the regional approach and of course the how that structure unfolds. Any questions or comments on these items? Next, we moved on to GIS, where two options were offered, and the working group essentially concluded that option 2 is essentially ongoing to enhance the state's GIS data by incorporating regional data. The E911 board currently supports GIS and works with the regions or municipalities when they have additional data or data sets to incorporate. So the comment was to essentially continue with this activity under option 2. Under policies and procedures, again, the working group showed a preference for option 2, which was to have state and local collaboration to develop a list of policies and procedures for communication centers to use as a guide. Again, we feel that this would be addressed by a governance subcommittee. Again, the governance committee, of course, or governance working group is still ongoing, but we anticipate there being subcommittees to address various technology and operational items. Certainly policies and procedures we would anticipate being one of those. We were able to identify a number of existing policies and procedures that are currently in use, and those have been cataloged and put on the SharePoint site. So there were a number of these policies, procedures provided by Hartford, by the VSP, PSAPs, by Essex, and a few other localities. So any subcommittee that does look at this will have a good baseline of existing policies and procedures to start from. Protocols, the working group had a similar preference where there's a state recommendation of protocol system and or a preferred vendor to use, but as a recommendation and not as a legislative action to adopt. And the working group notes that certainly wants state and local collaboration in developing these recommendations, protocol recommendations. Again, we would anticipate the cost to identify this would be part of a governance subcommittee. Any questions or comments on any of these items?
I just want to ask if before we go on, we're about 10 minutes
Sure.
from the scheduled time of our meeting to end. I just want to confirm that we will still have a quorum after 12:30. Are there any task force members that have a hard stop?
I do, Barb.
At 12:30?
I do, yeah.
Okay, that would leave Paul, Mike, Ron, Jim, and myself. Anybody, so we'd still have a quorum. Anyone else have a conflict? Should we continue or?
I'm good.
Kate? Okay. All right,
Good.
Dan, when it comes time for you to drop, go ahead and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, Dom, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you. Moving on to the next couple of work items. Planning was one in terms of continuity of operations planning. The working group's preference was for option 2 for a state-led training and workshop on planning initiatives and training. Again, we felt that development of these standard workshops would be part of a governance subcommittee work. Recruiting and hiring, there was also a preference for option 2 would be to create standard job classifications. And we did review potential classifications. The working group did identify that there were several resources such as ABCO and NINA and also some others that provided potential job descriptions, necessary skills and training that would be part for a telecommunicator. So we felt that this could be addressed also through the governance subcommittee work once a governance body is established. Questions or comments here? And the last couple we have were standardized training.
Dom,
and this, yes.
Bonnie has her hand. Bonnie has her hand up.
Okay.
Bonnie,
Does
go
it
ahead.
relate to
Sure.
one of these, Bonnie?
Right, I was just gonna add some commentary on the standard job classifications. I know you mentioned APCO and NINA.
Yes.
The National 911 program, it also has a job, a telecommunications reclassifications toolkit, telecommunicator reclassifications toolkit, sorry. That's a hard one to get out. That actually relates to how to improve your job description, everything for, especially if those to be moved toward that first responder type of category. They also, so APCO and NINA specifically, if you go to their websites, you can also see on NINA specifically, they have a map that shows first responder states that have, recognize them as first responders. On the APCO, that's really where you're going to find a lot of your core competencies that can help build your position descriptions as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bonnie. That was helpful. We did talk about reclassification certainly as a primary issue and recommend that the state looks towards that goal. And yeah, we did see the map on NINA that indicates a number of states which have taken steps in that path.
The reclassification toolkit does have suggested job descriptions as well, so that could be really helpful.
Great, yeah, thank you. One of the work items that was heavily discussed was the standardized training, of course, both for new hires and current employees. The working group preference was for option 2 in the short term was to create a list of approved training programs. And we know there's ongoing work within the state, certainly from the Vermont Emergency Dispatchers Association, newly formed, and the previous work prior to forming that group to identify training programs. And then the preference was to transition, hopefully as soon as possible, to option 3, where a statewide certification program was required for all job classifications within the PSAPs and dispatch centers, and that would help support reclassification as well. It was noted that this needs to be coordinated, of course, with the policies and procedures work, and also, as Bonnie suggested, reclassification. From a cost standpoint, we believe that this would be part of the governance subcommittee work, again, assuming there's a governance board with subcommittees, certainly one that would address standardized training. And there has to be support, certainly from the dispatch center, to make sure that employees have the opportunity and time allocated to receive the training and maintain their competency. The final item under Tier 3 was staffing, where there were options discussed, either continuing current staffing practices or looking at a hybrid staffing approach, where the hybrid approach would essentially identify staff that could be shared or potentially loaned between multiple locations, multiple dispatch centers that would be able to provide fill-in resources when one center potentially had a lack of resources at any given time or needed additional resources during a busy period. There were option 2 and option 3 were similar in terms of having a hybrid staffing model, where option 2 addressed those where the shared resources could actually be located in the physical location in the required dispatch center. And option 3 was for a remote approach. The working group preference was for option 2 right now, certainly to maintain physical being physically located within the dispatch centers. There's potential cost savings as are discussed in the system plan based on that's primarily based on the Tier 1 regionalization plan. If there are potential savings if regionalization occurs, there are also potential costs to add additional staff to meet minimum staffing requirements, which are further discussed in the plan. Any additional questions or comments here? Then I would suggest we move on to next steps, which we've kind of already talked about, Barb, in terms of the task force consideration of these. We offer these additional steps regarding the working groups. As I mentioned, there are some ongoing action items that are still being addressed, like looking at the regional boundaries potentially for a system of systems for the LMR approach. We did recommend that the working groups could meet as necessary if additional information or consideration of any of the previous options was required. We suggest the task force, consider all the recommendations here, and further, probably later activity would be to develop the more detailed implementation plans, as we showed earlier, to help prepare for presentation to the legislature. That completes what I have in terms of Tier 2 and Tier 3. Happy to address any other questions.
Great, thank you, Dom. Anybody have questions for Dom on any of this?
One quick one. So there were a few examples where, like, for example, Tier 2 referred to Tier 3 or Tier 3 referred to governance. I assume that the working group, somebody's tracking all of these referrals so that the receiving working group knows that they have some work to do that they might not have thought of already?
Yeah, yes, we are keeping track of that. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Paul.
And also, since the governance committee and working group is also meeting during this session, yes, we're kind of, in fact, I got another screen up and I'm working on the governance some of the governance presentation, because we have a governance meeting directly after this
Right.
task force meeting.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. Are we ready to move on? Okay. No executive session is needed today. New business. Does anyone have any new business? I have one, but anyone else? Okay, I just wanted to, I'm not sure we updated the full task force with the fact that Jen and I believe Dan, met with Joint Fiscal Committee at the end of July, and our request for additional spending authority in the neighborhood of 500,000, a little bit more than that, I don't remember the exact number, was approved by Joint Fiscal. We were invited back to their September meeting to provide a more detailed report on the task force work and the progress that we're making. So they had a number of questions on how the deliverables were being met and the requirements of Act 78 were being met. So Dan and I plan to work with Dom and Rick to ensure we put together a comprehensive report that will meet the needs of the Joint Fiscal Committee. That meeting is in mid-September. So I just want to make you all aware of that. And if there's no other new business, we can move on to public comment. I think if Kate is still with us, Kate, you might be the only one that would qualify, if you will, for public comment. Do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add right now. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. Okay. So our next meeting date for the regular task force is on the books for September 10th. Of course, the working group meetings are ongoing as well. So if nobody has anything further, I can look for a motion to adjourn.
Question quick, Barb, I assume, to facilitate, your individual review of the recommendations, I would distribute the PowerPoint that we just reviewed, distribute that to all task force members.
That would be very helpful. Yes, Dom. Thanks.
That's what I was just going to ask for.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
All
Excellent.
right, so I'll
okay.
make a motion to adjourn then.
All right, Ron, thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
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 I see hands up and I hear ayes, and so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. I think we have an 11-minute break before governance starts. So I'll see you all or several of you in that meeting in a few minutes.
Perfect.
So great. Thanks so
Well,
much.
have fun in that
Thank you.
meeting.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Right.